So we track like every single dollar we spend, right? And every calorie we eat.
Oh, yeah, and every step on our smartwatches, too. I mean, we are completely obsessed with it.
Exactly. We are just obsessed with budgeting all our resources, but almost none of us actually track how we are spending our actual selves.
Yeah, that is so true. We just sort of let our energy slip away.
Right. So today, our mission for this deep dive is exactly that. We are pulling from this incredibly eclectic mix of notes and excerpts from this document titled Day 161.
Which is just a fascinating collection, by the way.
It really is. It spans like ancient Roman philosophers, modern management gurus, a neuroscientist's take on brain chemistry, and even an NBA player.
Sounds like the most chaotic dinner party ever.
It totally does. But the goal here is to synthesize these voices to help you, the listener, figure out how to, align your ultimate values with the fleeting hours of your day.
And honestly, it is the ultimate human puzzle.
Right. I'm so glad you're here to help connect the dots on this, because looking at this stuff, it can feel a bit overwhelming.
I get that. But, when you put a 2,000-year-old Stoic next to a modern athlete, the sheer noise of their different eras just sort of fades away.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and you are left with this really stark, universal pattern about what it actually takes to be present and live with purpose.
Okay, let's unpack this from the very beginning. I want to start with a concept from the leadership thinker Simon Sinek.
Ah, yeah, Sinek. He has some great insights.
He does. He talks about fulfillment coming from the sense of purpose, right? Like having a cause or a belief that drives you.
Right, the whole start with why idea.
Exactly. But there's this specific kind of hidden phrase at the very end of his thought that completely changes the tone for me.
Oh, what does he say?
He says we can demand it. Not like wish for it, not passively wait for the universe to hand us a meaningful career. We can demand it.
Wow. Yeah, that word demand just shifts the entire burden of responsibility, doesn't it?
It really does. It feels so much more active.
It is. It is not the language of someone waiting for permission. It's the language of a person who has finally reckoned with the devastating cost of living on autopilot and decided the price is simply too high.
I love that.
And to really understand the mechanics of demanding that alignment, we should consider Peter Drucker.
Okay, the management guy. Right.
Exactly. But long before he was known as the father of modern management, he was a young, highly successful investment banker in 1930s London.
Wait, 1930s London, we are talking about the absolute depths of the Great Depression here.
Precisely. The global economy is essentially in free fall.
Yeah, people are just desperate for any kind of stability.
And amidst all that panic, Drucker was excelling. By every external metric, he was a massive success. The banking work fit his natural talents perfectly.
So he was basically on the fast track.
Oh, absolutely. His career had incredible upward momentum, yet he realized something fundamentally unsettling.
What was it?
He realized the work utilized his strengths, but it completely starved his values.
Oh, wow. That is a tough realization.
It is. He looked around and realized he just didn't want to dedicate his brief time on Earth to being an asset manager, no matter how good he was at it.
Great.
So right in the middle of a global depression,
Yeah.
with zero safety net and no other job prospects, he just walked away.
That is insane. It is the ultimate rejection of, the seduction of competence. We get so trapped in jobs just because we happen to be good at them.
Yes, the seduction of competence. That's a perfect way to put it.
But Drucker, he actually summarizes his entire philosophy for quitting with this brutal 9-word realization. I have it right here.
Oh, read it.
He said, I saw no point in being the richest man in the cemetery.
Man, that is just a masterclass in separating strengths from values.
It really cuts right to it.
It does.
Yep.
Drucker recognized that strengths are just tools. Values are the ultimate test of what those tools should actually be building.
Right, because otherwise, what are you even building?
Exactly. Success, if you measure it in conventional terms like wealth or status, it's totally hollow if you are building a life you don't actually respect.
Yep.
Albert Einstein actually made this exact same distinction. He warned against trying to become a person of success and urged us instead to become a person of value.
A person of value. I like.
Because success is merely the crowd's judgment of you. Value is your character. It's what remains standing in the empty room after the crowd goes home.
So relying solely on your natural strengths without aligning them to your deep values is it's like having a perfectly tuned $1 million sports car, but driving it at 150 miles an hour in the completely wrong direction.
Oh, that was a brilliant analogy. Yeah.
Right. because it doesn't matter how fast you're going or how beautifully the engine purrs.
Yeah.
Your sheer competence is actually just accelerating you further and further away from where you genuinely want to be.
That analogy just hits the nail on the head. Because if values represent the direction that sports cars pointed, we have to talk about the fuel required to move the vehicle.
Okay, yeah.
We have to talk about the actual currency we are spending to travel down that road. And that currency is time.
Ah, time. The great equalizer.
Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, he wrote about this thousands of years ago. And through the modern lens of the author Ryan Holiday, Seneca offers this really chilling warning.
What's the warning?
He says that every single yes you give is a trade. Every obligation you take on extracts a permanent cut.
Oh, man, yeah. Seneca points out that you never leave an interaction without leaving a piece of your youth behind.
Exactly.
Or, a piece of your golden years. Every time you say yes to a meaningless meeting or some toxic argument, you are literally buying it with a non-refundable piece of your own existence.
The stakes of our daily choices just skyrocket when you view them through that lens.
Yeah, they really do. It makes me want to say no to everything.
Well, combine Seneca's warning with Nelson Mandela's insistence that the time is always ripe to do right.
The time is always right.
Because time is the one totally finite, irreplaceable resource. The mandate isn't just to be a good person eventually. It is to use the currency of your time right now for what actually aligns with your values.
Okay, but I have to push back here a little bit.
Sure, go for it.
Because it is incredibly easy to read a noble quote from Nelson Mandela and nod along saying, yes, I shall use my time wisely.
Fair point.
But let's be real. How are you supposed to find that kind of pristine clarity on a random Tuesday afternoon when your brain has a million open tabs?
Oh, the open tabs, yes.
Right. You have emails to return, a half-finished project due at 5 p.m., maybe a lingering fight with a friend. How do we practically find the presence to spend our time well when our minds are just screaming with all these unresolved obligations?
That is the exact friction point where philosophy has to meet psychology.
Okay.
The Stoics actually had a concept for solving this. They called it kosmiotes, which loosely translates to orderliness.
Orderliness, like cleaning your room?
Well, no, they weren't talking about organizing your sock drawer. They meant the deliberate, ruthless arrangement of your internal and external life so that your mind actually has the physical space to focus.
Ah, I see.
Ryan Holiday illustrates this with a fantastic, really visceral example from Ben Gershman. He's the bassist for the band OAR.
Oh, the unpacked suitcase metaphor. Yes, this completely changed how I view my weekend chores, honestly.
It's so good, right? Gershman explains that when he comes home after months of chaotic touring, he does not actually feel settled, like his mind doesn't rest, until he physically unpacks his bags and puts the suitcase away in the closet.
Because if it's out, it's weighing on him.
Exactly. Until that suitcase is out of sight, a part of his brain is literally still on tour.
The unpacked suitcase is just a physical manifestation of an open loop, and that applies to everything.
Absolutely everything.
It's the email you drafted but didn't send. It's the awkward conversation you're, totally avoiding.
And this is exactly why it ties into modern neuroscience. Brains are wired with something called the Zeigarnik effect.
The Zeigarnik effect? What is that?
It means our minds remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks far better than completed ones.
Oh, of course they do.
Right. It was an evolutionary advantage to remember what we hadn't finished, like securing the perimeter of a camp so you don't get eaten.
That makes sense.
But in the modern world, having dozens of unfinished psychological suitcases creates a massive cognitive load. Your brain is constantly burning background energy trying to keep track of all those open tabs.
Wow.
Marcus Aurelius recognized this internal noise centuries ago.
Yeah.
You simply cannot be present, and you cannot spend your time purposefully if your processing power is hijacked by the cognitive load of yesterday's unfinished business.
This connects so perfectly to Bruce Lee's philosophy.
Oh, I love Bruce Lee. How does he fit in?
He talked about moving through life like a shadow adapting to a moving object.
A shadow, okay.
Yeah, a shadow doesn't drag yesterday's position into today. It doesn't lag behind, stubbornly holding on to where it was 5 seconds ago, and it doesn't anxiously try to jump ahead into the future. It is simply, fluidly, where it is right now.
That is beautiful.
But you can't be a shadow if you are lugging a 100-pound suitcase of unresolved mental clutter.
You really can't. Clearing those physical and mental open loops is the necessary warm-up. It gives your brain the bandwidth to actually meet the present moment.
Right, the warm-up.
But once you clear the clutter and achieve that baseline presence, You still have to face the daunting mental battle of doing the actual grueling work.
And here is where we bridge into the mechanics of doing that work. And I was honestly floored when I read this part of our sources.
The basketball quote.
Yes. Miami Heat player Bam Adebayo was talking about what true preparation requires. And he dropped this unbelievable alliterative sequence that sounds like poetry but acts like a blueprint.
It is wild.
I have to read the whole thing because the sheer weight of it is incredible. You ready for this?
Let's hear it.
He said, proper prior planning, progressive programming, planting power, poise, and prediction plus preparation pushing promise by paying the price with prompt and persistent practice in pursuit of perfection and a powerful, pure, and precise presence, prevents pitiful portrayals, and perennially promotes prolonged, polished peak play.
It is just a stunning piece of rhetoric.
I mean, how did he even come up with that?
Right. What's fascinating here is the architecture of how those concepts stack on top of one another. The accumulation is the entire point.
Yeah, notice that he doesn't offer a single hack.
No hacks at all. There's no shortcut to the polished peak play. You can't just skip the persistent practice.
You really can't.
Adebayo is taking Simon Sinek's abstract concept of a why and detailing the microscopic, daily mechanics required to manifest it on the court. Each component builds the foundation for the next.
It's all about the daily grind.
But the physical grind of practice is only half the equation. Marcus Aurelius provides the crucial rule for the psychological side of this preparation.
What did Aurelius say?
He wrote that if you find something incredibly difficult to achieve, you must not imagine it impossible for human beings. Because if anything is possible and proper for another person, it can be achieved by you.
Ryan Holiday actually frames this as a choice between two completely divergent operating systems when we observe someone else's success.
Yes, exactly.
So the first orientation is this zero-sum contracting jealousy. You see a colleague or a rival succeeding, and your immediate internal script is, why them? Why not me?
Which just drains your energy and breeds resentment.
Totally. And then the second orientation is a non-zero-sum expansive inspiration. You observe the exact same success, and your internal script flips to, if they can do it, why can't I?
And that mental framework dictates whether Bam Adebayo's grueling physical preparation ever actually gets initiated.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us? Because if I am being totally honest,
Yeah.
when I look at what stops people from pursuing their deep values or putting in that persistent practice, I don't actually think the biggest hurdle is jealousy.
Really? What do you think it is?
I think it is embarrassment. It's the paralyzing fear of looking stupid, of trying hard and publicly failing.
Oh, that tension points directly to a question of audience.
Audience, what do you mean?
Well, who are we actually performing for when we feel that embarrassment? The sources offer a brilliant deflating release valve for this exact fear from the writer Ethel Barrett.
I love this quote.
She pointed out, we would worry less about what others think of us if we realized how seldom they do.
It is a brutal but completely necessary ego check.
It really is.
We all walk around feeling like the main character in this high-stakes drama, convinced everyone is scrutinizing our every move. But in reality, we are just blurry extras in the background of everyone else's movie.
And that realization dismantles the invisible cage. The fear that kept Peter Drucker hesitating before he quit, the anxiety that keeps your mental suitcase half-packed. So much of that hesitation is performed for an entirely imagined audience.
An imagined audience, wow.
We burn our finite time worrying about the judgment of people who are completely consumed by their own cognitive load. We are sweating on a stage, performing for a theater that is already emptied out.
Which is incredibly liberating when you think about it. Once you realize the imagined audience isn't actually watching, you can drop the performance.
You can just let it go.
You are finally free to participate in the gritty, real world. And paradoxically, once you stop caring about looking foolish, it frees you up to take on a much heavier, more significant responsibility.
That brings us right back to the Stoics.
Yes, and we really need to bust a massive cultural myth here. When most people hear the word stoic today, they picture like a broic tech CEO who just represses all human emotion, withdraws from society, and doesn't care about anything.
That modern caricature is the exact inverse of historical reality. The Stoics did not retreat to mountaintops to meditate their problems away.
Right.
They were deeply, dangerously engaged in public life. In ancient Rome, under the tyrannical reign of emperors like Nero, they were so fiercely opposed to corruption and so committed to standing up for the vulnerable that historians literally refer to them as the Stoic opposition.
That is wild. They were politicians, senators, and public figures risking their wealth, their social standing, and often their actual heads to fight tyranny.
Yes, they weren't withdrawing, they were leaning into the chaos.
But how do you find the courage to do that?
Well, Seneca makes this radical claim about how a person actually finds the internal fortitude to face that kind of danger. He argued that while we have no say over who our biological parents are, we have the ultimate freedom to choose whose children we want to be philosophically.
We can consciously elect our ancestors?
Exactly. We can look back through the annals of human history and decide whose specific tradition of courage or intellect we are going to adopt and continue.
Here's where it gets really interesting, I think. It is like getting to draft your own historical fantasy team to mentor you through life.
A fantasy team. I love that way of framing it.
Right, because you aren't limited to the flawed people in your immediate zip code. You can scour history and say, I want them in my corner. Like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson essentially drafted the Roman statesman Cato.
They did. They studied his unyielding virtue as a blueprint for their own revolution.
And Marcus Aurelius, despite holding the ultimate power of an emperor, he drafted figures like Thrasea, Helvidius, and Brutus as his philosophical ancestors to keep himself grounded.
Because choosing those ancestors forces you to recognize that legacy isn't just a list of names carved into marble. Legacy is the living accumulation of unfinished work passed forward through generations.
That is so powerful.
Think of John McCrae's devastating World War I poem In Flanders Fields.
Oh, I know that one.
The most resonant lines are a direct challenge to the living. He writes, "To you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high."
Oh, wow.
The Stoic tradition, or really any great tradition, is fundamentally about reaching back, taking the weight of that torch from failing hands, and striving to carry it forward.
Henry Ford actually outlined the mechanical progression of how a group of people sustains that kind of tradition over time. He noted, coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success.
Ford is describing the deliberate continuity required to advance an ideal. It doesn't happen by accident.
No, you have to work for it.
It happens because individuals consciously choose to show up, to bear the weight that their philosophical ancestors carried, and to push the boundary line slightly further than where they found it.
But let's pause and look at the sheer weight of what we are talking about here.
It is heavy.
Aligning your values, managing your cognitive load, defying imagined audiences, fighting modern-day Neros, and carrying the historical torch. It is a massive amount of pressure.
It is.
What is the fundamental bedrock that actually gives a normal human being the resilience to live this way without just burning out and collapsing?
Well, to answer that, the sources completely shift the register.
Right.
We leave behind the management gurus and the Roman politicians, and we move into the profound metaphysical waters of Leo Tolstoy and Lao Tzu.
Okay, Tolstoy.
Tolstoy wasn't interested in productivity hacks or career transitions. He was asking the ultimate foundational question: what is a human being at our core?
A big question.
He rejected the mechanistic view that we are just meat and bone. He wrote that people are pieces of God, and therefore they cannot be completely destroyed. He argued that the eternal part of a person, the part that survives the friction of time, is quite literally love.
That is beautiful. And Lao Tzu echoes that ancient wisdom, stating that whoever knows the foundation of life is spirit is out of danger.
Exactly.
But let's ground this for a second.
Okay.
If Tolstoy says we are eternal pieces of love, how does that actually change the behavior of someone, listening to this on their morning commute, dreading a stressful 9 a.m. meeting?
Right. How do we use it?
Because it sounds incredibly poetic, but how is it an actionable strategy?
It becomes fiercely practical when we apply Ryan Holiday's relational translation of this concept. Holiday explains that human beings essentially run on one of two foundational operating systems:
Which are?
fear or love. Fear is a contracting state. It is reactive, defensive, and deeply rooted in a zero-sum mentality.
So if you are operating on fear, your coworker's success is your threat.
Exactly. But love, in this philosophical sense, is generative. It is an expansive, connective state.
So when you are panicked about that 9 a.m. meeting, you have to run a diagnostic on yourself. Am I reacting out of a contracting fear of losing my status? Or am I responding from an expansive desire to actually contribute something of value?
Yes, that shift in the operating system is the master key. This metaphysical bedrock is the ultimate permission structure for every single tactical thing we've discussed today.
The permission structure. I like that.
Because why do we refuse to let our time be stolen?
Mm.
Why do we do the hard work of unpacking our mental suitcases? Why do we bravely pick up the torch from our chosen ancestors?
Why do we?
We do it because we realize we are not just biological production machines grinding out tasks. We do it because our baseline nature is expansive and connective. We demand alignment because we finally value ourselves enough to spend ourselves well.
That synthesizes the entire journey beautifully. We aren't just trying to optimize our schedules. We are trying to align our daily actions with the most expansive, connective part of our nature. To bring this all the way back down to the pavement, I want to close the loop with a quote from the legendary basketball coach John Wooden.
Oh, Wooden is great.
He distilled this massive philosophical framework into just 7 relentless words. Nothing will work unless you do.
It is the ultimate, unavoidable reality check. Every aligned value, every beautifully unpacked mental suitcase, every historical ancestor you draft to your fantasy team, none of it alters the fabric of the real world unless you put your hands in the dirt and take action.
You have to do the work.
Peter Drucker, abandoning his prestigious banking career during the Depression, was a terrifying act of doing. Washington leading a starving army through a freezing winter was a gritty act of doing. The stoic opposition standing up to a lethal emperor were acts of doing.
Yeah.
The suitcases do not unpack themselves, and the torch certainly does not carry itself.
Which brings us right back to where we started. If your deep values dictate the direction your sports car is pointed, and your finite time is the irreplaceable gas in the tank, you still have to have the courage to put your foot on the pedal. And you have to do it now.
Because, as Seneca warned us right at the beginning, you are leaving non-refundable pieces of yourself behind with every single passing minute. You are spending your life right now, in this very second, whether you consciously realize it or not.
It's happening either way.
The only question left is what you are choosing to buy with it.
So I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to chew on today, long after this deep dive ends.
Okay.
If every single yes you give today leaves a piece of your youth, your energy, or your time behind, what are you buying with that piece of yourself right now?
That is the question.
Is it a trade you will be proud of when the crowd goes home? And more importantly, if you have the power to choose your philosophical ancestors today, whose unfinished work are you uniquely equipped to pick up?
That is the question that clarifies absolutely everything.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take that question with you, unpack those mental suitcases, and demand that alignment. We'll catch you next time.